This scene was the moment Jessa realized she was going to go after Adam, where Adam says, I think I don't want to go in there. And she says, why? You're afraid to see Hannah? And he says, I think I want to see her too much right now. So this is season 4, which is a lot earlier than I would have ever expected it to be. LOL Sappho says, I could not find a screen cap of the shot of her immediately after this, but she's smoking her cig, watching him walk away, and she makes this face. She can't understand Adam's obsession with Hannah. It fascinates her, like the way Ace's lifestyle fascinated her. Her talking to Shosh earlier in the season, talking about the amount of ex-lovers that threatened to kill themselves over her, was enlightening to rewatch before this moment. Labyrinth Runner says, yes, she wants to be loved like that. I love seeing it play out when he makes the movie and then offers to raise Hannah's child, and she has to let it play out, hoping he will transfer that love. I don't know why there's a squiggle. Maybe it's a squiggle because it's like, is it love? Is it adoration? Is it obsession? Onto her, or recognize it has. That's such a very young person thing to do. See someone with romantic preoccupation and be attracted to it in hopes they could be the subject of such romantic preoccupation. She mate poached, and I can totally see that. I love Jem Kirk because she plays Jessa so well, but Jessa herself, I'm just like, get your help. I don't feel bad for you. Maybe I should feel more bad for her, but I'm just like, don't do that to your friends. Like, I don't like it. She wanted him in Bushwick. Total foreshadowing. Avid at the ist says, when she called him like the first man or something. Wasn't that just a joke about his name being Adam? Yes. You look like the first man. I never put that together. That's so funny. Hannah90219 says, I feel like at this stage she's confused and disappointed that Adam can't just let Hannah go. While she loves her, I don't think she takes Hannah seriously and can't understand why Adam does. And that reminds me of a lot of female friendships where one of the women are just really jealous of the other one, whether it's like their boyfriend or their career, and they just like cannot see them win. That's why, as much of a emotional romantic mess Marnie is, I can resonate with the fact that like she does really want to see Hannah win. And yes, she slept with Ray. She didn't sleep with Adam because I don't think Adam's really her type. But for me, my justification is that like those are honestly issues not to do with the girls themselves. Whereas Jessa actually started becoming really mean to Hannah when she was sleeping with Adam, which I was like, that's really mean. Like, you're actually doing something wrong, but now you're being mean to her. Like, it was so mean to me. Hannah90219 says she totally underestimated and misunderstood Hannah and Adam's relationship, which I agree. When he goes off to try to convince Hannah to let him raise the baby, she tries to have sex with a stranger at a bar, but ends up crying, saying, I don't want you. Jessa has never had any real feelings or connections with anyone before Adam, so she assumes that it's a mutual experience. But Adam genuinely loved Hannah, and what they had was real. It's her first love, but not his. I like that take. And I think it affirms that this is a really powerful scene right here, that it was like the moment Jessa realized she was going to go after Adam, whether she's aware of it or not. Like, she wants something that she can't have, and she's going to screw over people in the process, and that's okay with her, because I think her morals, I don't know, like, again, I will defend Marnie a little bit more than I will defend Jessa in this instance, because Jessa actually is just like being mean to Hannah. LJ Tat says Jessa is such a deeply flawed person, but she just wanted to be loved and to be seen for who she really is. And if you saw my first breakdown, which you can watch right up here, you'll see that one of the fan theories was that one of the best episodes was Jessa going back to visit her dad, because you can really see that like tumultuous relationship that she had with him, where she thought she was going to hang out with him and then he had plans with his girlfriend, and you can see all of this really dark stuff that ends up with her putting herself in rehab because of it. And yes, I mean, that's the thing that happens to a lot of people. I do feel bad for her in that sense, and it is like to the point where she just wants to be loved and to be seen who she really is. I mean, one of the first episodes in season 1 was like her meeting Thomas John and then like immediately getting married. Like, she just so wants to be on that other side of, having all of the things, but she's just gonna screw herself over every time. LOL Sappho comments and says, no, you're so right. I relate to her growing up as a very emotionally neglected child, and her need to fill that void has caused her to do a lot of wild things. It's one of the things I really relate to in her character. Probably why I like to analyze her choices so deeply. She doesn't always make great decisions, but as someone who swung the opposite way and trying to be perfect and people-pleasing, I admire that she goes after what she wants, even if it's not always the kind or smart thing to do. That's an interesting take. I admire her going after what she wants. I think that's a really good breakdown, and I actually have an entire Jessa breakdown that you can also watch up here that I don't even think I mentioned in the breakdown because I get so caught up in just Jessa like making horrible decisions, but she does go after what she wants. I have to give it to her. And as somebody who's a very high achieving, maybe you are too, like you can relate to that where nothing is going to get in your way. Unfortunately, maybe becomes at the expense of other people, but there is something to say about someone who's very determined about something. Jessa really realized, wow, I don't think I've ever heard of anyone saying that in my life, including my own father, my own family. And that's probably when she realized, like, oh man, what a amazing I want that. And unfortunately for her, fortunately for me, because I'm always an Adam and Hannah stan, he'd never really had that with Jessa. I mean, even thinking about it was like one of the last episodes where he tries to make it work with Hannah, the infamous, this really good soup, but then he goes back to Jessa. And it's like, he doesn't go back to Jessa because he goes back to Jessa because he's sad, right? So like she's the second choice there. And that must be a really bad feeling. Fan theory number 2, Jessa depresses me so much. Says educational round 9056. Just watched the episode where Shoshana plans a meeting between that British guy and his daughter, and I just realized how devastating the whole situation is. Jessa wasn't in the best place she could be, but at least she was trying to improve. Then here comes the British guy making her relapse all over again, a guy she basically saw as a father figure. Did she though? Then the meeting happens and she gets abandoned all over again, and the only thing Shoshana does is say she looks like a junkie. Like she never had anyone mature or even in their right mind in her life who really cared for her. The older adults on the show all use her and then abandon her. With every rewatch, she looks more and more like an abandoned child having to unlearn everything by herself. I completely agree with that last line. With every rewatch, she looks more and more like an abandoned child. I mean, even thinking about that last theory when she goes into the bar and hooks up with somebody and she's just so distraught. Like she just looks like she was run over by a train. Like she looks awful. And it's all her emotions that are doing this to her. Comfortable Bike 371 says, Jessa also breaks my heart. The bathroom scene in the bar is just incredibly tragic. I think of it all the time. She obviously made major missteps, but she's carrying a lifetime of pain even at her young age. Sometimes I wish the writers would have presented her internal struggles more explicitly. Nonetheless, as much as I hate what she did to Hannah, I'll always empathize with Jessa individually. She's much more believable to me than any other character, sadly. Wow. This is like a very different take than what mine is. As mine is just like, okay, realize that you're an addict in love and sex and everything and get the help and commit. But I also understand, I have to remind myself too that addiction is a disease. And this disease usually comes from having family members and people in your upbringing who do not show you what love looks like. They don't show you secure attachments. So I have to remember that, like Jessa she was a little girl at one point and she's struggling because she never had that guidance. I feel like a lot of people in these Reddit threads really feel like, especially if they had really difficult upbringings, relate to Jessa so much, and I find that so fascinating. In fact, Never Given a Name says, I've been sober nearly 10 years and I really appreciate Jessa's character for how honestly they portray an addict like Jessa. I never really thought of that. They portray Adam and say he goes to 12-step programs, but Jessa's really portrayed very well as an addict. Now that I think about it, like on the surface, it's very easy to say that person's selfish and that person's this and that person's that, just like I'm doing right now. But that's probably what a lot of people think addicts are, is just like, oh, that they're making a choice, just get help. Like, I can even hear it in myself, my impatience with that, and my lack of grace towards somebody who's going through that. Never Given a Name continues, I agree this is uncomfortable, it's depressing, it's enraging, it's heartbreaking to watch her at times, but it's supposed to be because that's how it is to love an addict or an alcoholic. We see her struggle with the flood of emotions that comes with sobriety because she can't numb them. We see her acting impulsively or not listening to her better judgment because she feels like she can't trust herself. I think she's particularly hard to watch for people who have a close friend or family member who struggled with addiction. I'm thinking of that one scene where she's still with Thomas John and she's in his like penthouse apartment and she's painting him. Now, I know that Hannah had written that because Jemima Kirk is an artist. That's what I believe she went to school for and studied. And she was friends with Lena, and Lena really wanted her to be in the show, so she ended up acting in a lot of things, but she wanted to be an artist. She didn't even really want to be on Girls initially. She was like, I don't know. And she always felt this feeling that she didn't want Jessa to be too close to her. And so that one scene where Lena did have her being an artist, I think she was like, hey, I don't want to do anything like that anymore. Like, it's too close. It's too real. I don't think we see her doing art in the future, but we do see her have all of these different like interests. Like, she wants to be a therapist. Like, she's actually really fashionable and she's really creative and she's really stylish. Like, she's going to go for what she wants. And that's a really iconic thing to do. But with that, I think, especially because we see so many people in the entertainment industry, lots of artists, lots of creatives who struggle with addiction. I think because we have an addictive personality. Like, I will admit I have an addictive personality. I am not in any 12-step programs, but like when I get my mind set on something, I am there. And so I could totally see how so many addicts can relate to Jessa. Now, Lulu92 says, I always feel bad for Jessa, but not during this scene. She got herself kicked out of rehab and then manipulated the pickup situation. Yeah, well, those are the things that get to me. I'm just like, okay, well, you're struggling, but now you're just being a straight up a-hole. Like, you're not even trying to humble yourself and be like, I don't know anything. Like, you're just being a jerk. So that's kind of where that gets me. Lulu says, yes, she was trying to better herself, but at the end of the day, she wasn't ready to change or be sober. She wasn't. And my hope is that at the end of the season, at the end of the entire series, that's when she realizes, I want to change. When she starts going to meetings and falling for Adam is when you really see her committed to changing her life and committing to her sobriety. There are other scenes in the show in which I do feel awful for her, though. See, I don't think that she's committing to sobriety with Adam, though, because I think she's just transitioning from, like, alcohol and drugs and everything to sex. And then there's that, I mean, I'm thinking of that one scene when her and Adam are, like, fighting violently in the apartment and he's breaking things and she's breaking things, and you know that it could easily be a scene where like Adam's being really violent. You're like, wow, I feel so bad for Jessa, but like they're both doing it. She's doing it too. I completely agree with this theory, and like I'm thinking back to my other breakdown video and there were lots more giggles, and even in these first two theories, like Jessa depresses me so much, I'm definitely feeling a little down even talking about it. So theory agreed with. Miles Dean says, I genuinely hated every man in the show except Ray. Why do so many in the subreddit give them the benefit of the doubt? And I give a lot of them the benefit of the doubt. I give Adam. I give even Fran. Do you hate me for doing that? Well, if you don't, definitely hit subscribe because I'm going to be making a ton more videos like this, lots more girls breakdowns, and other television series that are also similar to girls. Miles Dean says, maybe it's because I'm a younger adult, but I'm not going to lie, it's hard reading some people be so hard on Marnie and Hannah, deserved. Then say they hope Desi gets his own spinoff where he's super successful and sober, or that Adam was just misunderstood when he wasn't that bad. I mean, I think it's because they like the actors. Both of these characters have been portrayed as emotionally abusive addicts for a lot of the show, yet I swear to God, reading some of the posts on these subreddit, I'm getting the same pulling my hair out feeling that I did having to watch everyone gaslight Hannah about Fran. Edit. Y'all are acting like me saying I don't hate Ray is saying I love him, like he's done nothing wrong. Okay, let's see what people say. Powerful Topic 7046 says, Laird was a good guy, and of course Elijah. Laird, yes, we love Laird. Laird could not hurt a fly. Was he like a total enabler? Absolutely, but we love Laird. Elijah's literally my favorite character, says Objective Wrongdoer 24, but also a terrible person. Yes. Laird is a weird little angel. Okay, that's the title of this. Laird's a weird little angel. Elijah was like literally a sociopath. He was the funniest character on the show, but come on. Yeah, he was crazy. I'm thinking of that scene where Shosh realizes she just came back from like the Weeman thing, and she's like, I could have been a part of Jamba Jeans. Jessa, you ruined my life. And she was with Elijah, and Jessa was walking away, but Elijah was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe blah blah blah. It just like slow zooms into Shosh's face where she's like, I don't even want to be with Elijah too, like he's being crazy. Miles OP says, Laird did deserve better, but OMG, I'm not gonna lie, Elijah kept wearing down on me when I liked him before, and I don't know, man, maybe it's because I want to be a parent, but I'd personally never forgive someone saying I'd be a horrible parent. Yeah, that was awful. That was awful. Written by Rabbit says, he was right though, he was the only person who was real with her. What are your thoughts on Elijah? Comment below. It's so funny because yes, he's real. I mean, how much do you have to be real as a friend? Like, what defines a friend? How real? Like, you don't want to enable a friend, but you also don't want to just be straight up mean to them, you know? Think about a friend who keeps going back to their ex. Like, how real are you with them? Are you saying, like, you're an idiot going back to him? Or are you trying to be gentle with them and saying, I've given you my feedback, I've told you what I think, but now that's your decision? Like, where does that line for you? Comment below. And does Elijah cross it? Someone goes, people like Desi? OMG, he's unbearable. Yeah, he is. I think we just love the actors because, I mean, the acting is so strong in this show. According option 656 says, Ray was also weird for dating a young college girl at his grown age. OP says he was, but that was only at the start of the show. I don't know. He did his best to treat her with respect. Tad's fine. I do not trust Elijah, bro. He'd roofie someone for fun. On the way, it says, I feel like there's a layer of separation though for people where they don't realize quite what it would be like to actually be in this universe interacting with these characters. So people who criticize the girls may actually find them pretty relatable and may even want to be their friends in real life. Equally, people who say they think Adam would be worth a shot would probably be very shocked in real life. There's the character, then there's the actor. And so for me, like, I love Adam Driver. I think he's really great. So like Adam, because Adam is so much like Adam, the lines can get really blurred. Lots of people get like triggered by Adam yelling. There is such a realism to that because there is like a divine rage inside of people where we run away from anger, and anytime anger is depicted on a screen, where especially from a man, it's like he's violent. Now, those stories need to be very clear, and I think that's very important, and I think it's also been normalized that like men are violent and women are not, and that's not okay. But I think there's such a complex dynamic because it's like, even if you read Lena's recent book, Famesick, he's very connected with this internalized anger where sometimes the anger, it's justified because it's not geared towards anybody. Comment if you disagree. You're okay to disagree, of course. But it's just interesting because I think like in TV shows, sometimes there's a clear person you want to be rooting for and a person you don't want to be rooting for. The lines are very blurred in girls, which is why I love it a lot. Voltaire 2019 says, I don't understand the need to like the characters. They are flawed, fascinating, and hilarious. And that's exactly what I'm saying. And but it's still great to have a conversation about this because in traditional television, we're so comfortable just liking all of the characters. One of the first times I saw this executed actually was Seinfeld. So Larry David does a fabulous job of creating very unlikable characters, usually in a TV series. If you think of something like New Girl or The Mindy Project, TV series where every episode a character is learning something, they're learning something about themselves, they had a thought about something and then maybe it's dispelled and they learn something new. With Seinfeld, this genius thing that Larry David does, and he does it in Curb Your Enthusiasm as well, is these characters are not only unlikable, but they never change. And that's what I believe is his perception on the world is not everything is so cheesy all the time. Not everything is like, oh, well, there's going to be a good lesson at the end. Sometimes people just don't change. Jerry is making a mistake, but then he just does the same thing again. Like George, he's constantly making the same mistakes with women. Does he learn the next time? Absolutely not. He does the exact same thing. And that's kind of this darker view of the world that makes it really interesting and funny. With Seinfeld, they are always back to where they started. They are always in the same situation. They're always screwing themselves over. They're losing jobs. With Girls, it's a very similar viewpoint where there is not a clear right and wrong. There's not a clear lesson. I don't know if I necessarily agree with this fan theory. I feel like if you say you hate every man in the show, you also have to say like the women too, because that's the nature. I just think of all the characters, but it's still valid. Fan theory number 4 is by Affectionate Tarot 3209. Anyone else here detest Fran? I mean, I get he's a good guy. He's arguably a better human than most of the guys, but I honestly just can't stand him. There's something so off-putting about him, and I don't think that it's because I'm averse to good guys. I'm a huge fan of good guys. It's just this particular good guy makes me cringe. My first watch around, I was really pro Fran. Like, yes, he was a little bit like angry, but I was like, dude, Hannah is being not mature, especially in the setting that they were in. Like, he's a teacher, Hannah's a teacher, she's hanging out with Cleo, she's getting tongue piercings. Like, what are you doing? Like, I feel like she needed a little bit of that. Dude, what are you doing? Now, when he was going through grading and making sure that the students were spelling things right, that was lame. And that's where I think I've heard Lena say, like, Fran is supposed to be, he's a square, and Hannah's not a square. Jake Lacey, who plays Fran, also plays that, like, jerk in The White Lotus in the first season, who's like constantly complaining about his room, and he's like, why didn't we get this suite, and we should have gotten this one, and just eventually, if you watch White Lotus season 1, you know what happened. And he was also in The Office, and he played Plop, I think, which was like the Wish version of Jim. And it's so funny because Jake Lacey's character as a whole, like he teeters between like this nice guy and this total jerk, which is so fascinating because usually you would see, oh, this character plays the nice guy or this character is the jerk, but he's so good at playing both, and it pops out in Fran all the time. Gold Warning 8618 says, I think that's what they were going for in the show. Some milquetoast white guy who mistakes his repression for kindness and resents everyone who doesn't police their own behavior as hard as he does his own, and feeling this way was so normal to him that it didn't even register to him that he doesn't even really like Hannah. Yeah, I agree. I don't think that he liked Hannah. I feel like there were times, you know, he went out with Hannah and then he was like, I don't want to be a part of this drama. And I agreed with him. Again, like I agreed with him. And so at the end of that season, I can't remember if it's season 3, where they're like walking together in the snow and the camera's down at their feet and then it goes up and you're like, whoa, Hannah and Fran are together. That made no sense to me. I'm like, how did she convince him to be with her? That makes no sense. Maybe he wanted something more consistent. I don't know. Maybe he just wanted a girlfriend. Cultural Iron 2372 says, hot take, I don't even find him to be nice at all. He was narrow-minded and judgmental and controlling. Yeah, he was. No, yeah, he sucks. He's just an unpleasant person, whether he's morally correct in a situation or not, which I think is the point, says Disastrous Blue Jay 48. He continues to date Hannah despite seemingly liking nothing about her. Legit trying to tame a wild horse or whatever it is. She was said to him, bro had me siding with her in the about to be summer incident. The thing is, like, I agreed with Fran. I'm like, dude, if you were my girlfriend and you were like showing your hoo-ha to a bunch of people, like, I'd be like, what are you, especially to the principal to try to get out of trouble. I'd be like, what are you doing? But at the end of the day, like, we have to remember, this is a comedy. Like, this is a show and it's meant to make you laugh, which is why I love the characters so deep, because we can have deep conversations like this and also just be like, okay, well, also it was just a character. Like, it's fine. It's not that serious. Which also is why you should totally follow along, because we have more of these to come. Lots of girls breakdowns coming for you soon, and I would love to hear your thoughts. And like this video if you're enjoying it as you commute or cook dinner or do the laundry or clean the house. I love hanging out with you here. Oh yeah, someone says he's great at playing unlikable characters. He's so good in White Lotus. He was so good at being unlikable in Girls that I can't stand seeing his face in other movies and TV shows. That's the power of an actor. That's why I was a theater major. I went to acting school. That is my dream. Like, I want to be an actor. And that's why I love it, because you could trigger these emotions in people. And at the end of the day, be like, it's not that serious. It's just a show. It was for your entertainment. We're all having conversations about it. Gosh, what a beautiful thing it is, isn't it? By Rope Gloomy 4303, thoughts on the ending of Ask Me My Name. So to refresh, Hannah tries to form an earnest connection with the stranger the same way she saw Mimi Rose Eleanor Howard do effortlessly earlier in the episode. However, she gets swiftly rejected. She leaves despondent, throwing the shirt to the trash. I've always felt affected by this moment. There's something so human and vulnerable about it. I confess it does touch a personal nerve. I'm curious by what this ending means in terms not just of Hannah's character or the show's themes, but overall what it's saying about the human connections. Oh, I was getting confused between Ask Me My Name and that other like immersive show that they did when Hannah finds out that Adam is with Jessa because they're doing this like recreation thing. I love all the immersive things. And I know because Lena grew up with two very creative parents, she was constantly around these things. And I love bringing that into this show because I also love bringing to light, like as a theater gal myself, I love bringing to light the fact that like there are so many different types of performance in theater. Because I feel like non-theater people are kind of just like, oh, we're going to the theater, we're going to watch people on a stage. There's so much more types of performance art, and I just love that she normalizes it. It's so cool. Okay, Succotash 1089 says, I just rewatched this episode and I saw it very subjectively as a realization that Mimi Rose Eleanor Howard is selling a fantasy, and that her whole shtick doesn't work at all when you're doing it as Hannah. Perhaps Hannah also realized she fell for Mimi Rose's charisma and allegedly brilliant perspective in a very short period of time, just like Adam had. Goopawag says, yep, MRH's blonde and sprite-like embodiment goes a long way towards people's willingness to interact with her just from a glance. As a young woman, it's really quite devastating when the realization dawns that how easily people move through an artistic milieu often comes down to just this very thing. Youngblood9 says, I think this is maybe my favorite episode, and the ending especially. It always gets a huge belly laugh out of me when Hannah tries the line and the service worker just keeps it moving, which is like, ask me, oh, my name, Hannah. I always wonder if that was actually in the script or if it's just Lena being Lena just being in the moment. I mean, she is the icon for me of improv and just being in the moment. Like, I just want to learn how to be that present when I'm acting. I love it. To me, Hannah and MRH are maybe the most perfect example of the literary foil I've ever seen. I think the term often gets oversimplified to mean characters who are opposites when really they're characters whose differences and similarities highlight each other's characteristics. Specifically, they're highlighting the coconut popsicle. It's such a small little thing they slid in that just makes me cackle. Hannah wishes so badly she was the type of girl who chooses a coconut popsicle as a treat, which I think when they're in the diner, the deli, after the taxi driver like hits someone. But Mimi Rose is that kind of girl. She either makes good choices and exercises restraint, or even worse, she's just one of those effortlessly thin girls who got lucky because she hates sugar. Mimi Rose is literally living Hannah's dream life. Ooh, very well said. Very well said. Just like that girl whose name I forget, but she like went to college with her and then she released a book and then they like smoked together later on in the season, and she's like, I've always envied you because you're like more famous than me and doing more things than I am. There's so many people who pop into Hannah's life living her dream life, and she's like, man, I want to be a person who actually creates, who actually puts it out there. Hannah wants to try it on. She wants to be like her so badly, artistic, thin, beautiful, charismatic, unselfish, not realizing it's not a world accessible to her because of her own traits. Ooh, interesting. And frankly, it's a bit of a facade anyway, so she tries it on with the line and immediately gets thrown in her face because that's not her. Oh, Tally Schifrin. I think I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think it speaks so well to the artistic experience because as artists, we're constantly thinking about our art, we're constantly getting inspired, but for the most part, we're not doing our art as much as we want to. Even like artists who are on set, the amount of time that you're actually filming versus the amount of time that you have a stand-in versus the amount of time that you're in your trailer and you're memorizing lines, like the amount of time you're actually on screen is very little compared to all the prep. And this is even speaking to actors and artists who are actively working. So many of us are not actively working. We're waiting for our next project. We're actively submitting, but we're not getting it. And throughout the entire series, this is what Hannah speaks to, aka Lena. This is what Lena's speaking to because she's just like the rest of us. And I love that it's put to a big screen because we could put her on a pedestal so much and romanticize what it is to, oh my gosh, Lena Dunham, she has her own show and everything. But there was a moment before she had her own show. There was a moment after she had her own show. She's just like the rest of us, and she will say that too. The more we put people on a pedestal, especially artists, the more we detach from that possibility ourselves. It's very similar to what she does with Mimi Rose Eleanor Howard. Like, she sees that she has a TED Talk and she has the actual performances. And there's even a moment where she's just like, oh my gosh, you're so pretentious. You're doing this stupid show about blah, blah, blah. And then you hear MRH being like, you're right. That's my biggest fear, that people think I'm pretentious. But in reality, I was so moved by this and I wanted to make it. So there's this balance between, okay, when you don't have the opportunity You want to be like other people. But then when you do have that opportunity, when you do become like the other people, then you fear being too pretentious or being too weird. So there's always a fear. There's always going to be the grass is always greener sort of thing. Azani Little Reddit says, this post made me realize I currently have my own Mimi Rose. It's hard when you feel like you're the genuine version of someone else's curated personality. And worse, theirs seems to be accepted better. Well, that's another thing that someone had mentioned is like her looks and her body type is the more traditionally accepted. Is that why she's gotten further than Hannah has? Outdated Whale Facts says, it reminds me so much of when I've seen a friend say something and get an awesome response and then I try it and get nothing more than a weird look. I've done that so much. In middle school, I feel like I never really fit in grade school, and I feel like I would listen to what the popular girls was saying and I would say it word for word and people would be like, what? I think it speaks to the bigger picture too of when we try to like replicate another artist's journey. Like when I was in college, I would always listen to podcasts of artists being like, okay, so here's how I got my first Broadway show. I did this and I did that. I'm like, okay, so if I just do that, I'll get my first Broadway show. And it's like, no, there's so many nuances. It also reminds me of that episode when she's hanging out with Adam's sister and she tells the whole story about like the cousin and he goes to prom with her and then she passed away and that was like her own wish was that she went to prom and it was completely made up, and then she tells it to Adam. That was actually a real story that happened, I believe, to Lena's dad, I want to say, but she's just seeing things in the wild and trying to replicate them to see if that's going to work for her. So I think they're speaking to like when she's actually in the getting coffee and trying to form a connection, and he's like, whatever. I'm also thinking of like when they're in the laundromat and then MRH like writes a poem for her, and something I've never thought about. So I agree with this fan theory that it's just really profound and touching that, you know, she wants so badly to make stories that touch other people, but when she's out in the wild, she doesn't really want to take that time to connect with people, or maybe she's connecting in a way she thinks she needs to connect, but she actually should be doing it in another way. Agreed, that was a really profound scene. Was Laird the unsung hero of girls? MJWZA says that birth scene where he starts talking about a Tom and Jerry scene and Adam screams at him to shut the F up is so funny. Yes, the entire birth scene, like you're rooting for Laird. I mean, I personally was like rooting for Laird so much. I was like, I want you to have like a good relationship and be a good father. But then when he completely shrinks when she's having a baby is just so funny. And then circling back to Jessa, gotta give her credit. She was the one who was actually there and put her head under the water and was able to help out. Global Push 6279. Yes, exactly what we were just saying before. When Adam's sister told a horrible fake story of how Adam took his dying cousin to prom and Laird burst into tears, it showed how pure his heart was despite his past. I just love Laird so much. Yeah, it's like he was a addict and then he got sober, and he was even trying to tell Hannah when Hannah was asking him for stuff, and he was like, no, don't do it, like that's really not bad. And he was like following her around and like babysitting her and making sure she was safe. That was so sweet. He's so sensitive. When my friend first showed me the show, like the first time I was watching it, she's like, just wait until Laird. Did you get to Laird yet? Did you get to Laird yet? And then I'm like, wow, I know why you like Laird. Like he's just living under the stairs, like troubled, but like trying to be better and so innocent. Gosh, I love him. I read in her book that Judd was someone who really pushed her to have characters like Ray to kind of reflect the ridiculousness of all of the girls, and him being like, why are you guys doing this? This is so trivial. Why are you guys doing this? This is so ridiculous. I wonder what the Laird character is, because he wasn't necessarily being, I mean, I think there's a few times that he called her out and was like, you're being a little, you're being a little crazy. But I don't know what his role was aside from just being this like really funny, contradicting. I don't even know. I don't know. It's just, I love him. Temp Ghost 11 says, probably not. He probably wasn't the unsung hero, but Laird will always be my favorite character because John Glazer is an underappreciated treasure. Agreed. +1. Someone goes, why are you always trying to make a man the hero of the show? I don't know. I think it's just that he's like he's just a character that you wouldn't expect. That behavior goes, no, the unsung hero was the doctor who told Hannah she doesn't want AIDS. That's a silly thing to say, and that you couldn't pay her enough to be 24 again. Freeze-dried ice cream says, for me, the unsung hero was Hermie. Hermie was a great character. And someone goes, I love his delusional A. There are so many amazing, I'm not, let alone just the cast of girls, which is incredible, but so many of the sub roles in it just bring it to life so much more. Whether it is Fran, whether it is Ray, whether it is Laird or MRH, like so many people just reflecting back who these characters are. I think Laird and MRH really speak to Hannah as a whole, where MRH is that desired feeling. Maybe Laird is what Hannah kind of comes back to sometimes, of like, oh, let me just do some, bad stuff to make me feel bad. I don't know. If you didn't watch my first fan theory, definitely head over there next, because there's plenty more where that came from. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, friend. Love you so much, and I will see you next time. Bye.